So, as the Oklahoma Sooners are set to host a loaded weekend, a really important weekend, they go into the weekend with two major wins yesterday on Friday, and we need to talk about why both are important. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you happy with both the news that DaShaun White is returning and that the Oklahoma Sooners got another player out the transfer portal? Let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoy that content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though they are small, are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, we need to break this down because this is a great way to start an important weekend for the Oklahoma Sooners. And we'll start with the news of the Sooner deciding to stay on campus for another year and forego the NFL draft, and that is linebacker DaShaun White. And this is really key for the Sooners in a lot of ways that I talked about yesterday that are very similar to why Henry To'oTo'o coming back for Alabama is so key. But for the Sooners in particular, whenever you have an inside linebacker returning, that's music to your ears, especially when they were a productive member of your defense. Because the inside linebacker position is very much well akin to the quarterback of the defense, responsible for signals, responsible for making sure everybody else is kind of in line with what they're doing, meanwhile holding an incredibly important job themselves. And especially in the modern era of offenses go after that position frequently. So you have got to have guys that not only have the athletic ability, that's great, but if you have the athletic ability without understanding the position, it's all for nothing because they're going to get you. That's the whole point of these offenses, is they're almost traps, waiting for players to make a mistake, and then boom, they're capitalizing on that mistake. So for the Oklahoma Sooners, getting a veteran guy in that inside linebacker position back is paramount because of the experience he has, and that experience will really help develop the guys under him. Because it's all well and good when you have a coach telling you what to do. That's great. But it's much easier to synthesize that information if you have the requisite experience. It's very similar to everything else in life. If you have experience doing something and then somebody kind of coaches you in how to do it, you can think back to your prior experience and apply the lessons directly. Whereas if you're going to learn to do something and you have someone teaching you, that's fantastic. It really, really helps. But whenever you get there, you start understanding the lessons in different ways because now you're having a hands-on approach. And all of a sudden that information is relayed to you in a different way. So having somebody that has been there, done that, is huge, especially in a year where you're kind of switching schemes anyways, because Brent Venables is a defensive guy, specifically great with that linebacker position, and it's almost more important than to have a guy with experience. And I know what you're thinking. You might be sitting there thinking, well, wouldn't this be a year where not having the experience there wouldn't matter as much because we are switching schemes? Or logic would dictate we'll probably be switching schemes to a certain degree, and while you're not wrong, that switch is going to be accelerated with a guy that, like I just said, whenever he's getting this information from the coaches, can think back to his time playing, his experience, and use that to synthesize the information quicker. That's why I think this is such a big deal for the Oklahoma Sooners, and especially with Brent Venables. Brent Venables has got to be over the moon that now he has an experienced backer coming back, someone that was so productive for the Oklahoma Sooners. But that's not the only area that the Sooners got good news, because Brent Venables continues to utilize the transfer portal. And before we talk about Jeffery Johnson, I want to talk very briefly about that because I've been highly impressed with Venables' use of the portal. Venables coming in had the misfortune of coming in a week or so away from early signing day, and that's a really tough ask, especially when so many of the commits had such a strong relationship with so many members of the former staff. So whenever you're Brent Venables, you're coming into a class that has now had the head coach taken away, had now had so many members of the support staff taken away, and members decommitting, you've got an uphill battle. And one of the things I've consistently heard from people when I talk to them about Brent Venables is that he's huge on relationships. And so being able to establish those relationships are massive. Unfortunately, he just didn't have the time between when he was hired and early signing day. Now he has a bit of grace period between early signing day and regular signing day. It's going to be interesting to see how he capitalizes on that. That's another reason why this weekend is going to be so interesting, not only for this year, but the building blocks of the future for the Oklahoma Sooners. Whenever you're put in a situation like that, you have got to use all the tools at your disposal. And the transfer portal is maybe no bigger tool right now. Because I always say this, the portal taketh, but the portal giveth. If you are out there and you're hunting in the portal, you can replace talent that you have lost with guys that are talented but have experience. And that's exactly what Brent Venables and Oklahoma have done so far. Venables is not trying to take a backseat in the Big 12 for a year and have a growing year. He's trying to hit the ground running, and I love that. I mean, I think fans of college football everywhere have got to love that kind of tenacity, that kind of aggression, because it's what needs to happen under the current landscape of college football. And especially in a situation like Oklahoma had, where so many players were transferring out, guys moving on to the next level, players decommitting. Brent Venables looks at the situation, understands it's out of his control, but goes to the one thing that is in his control, the ability to get guys from the transfer portal. And that's awesome. But now let's talk about Jeffery Johnson, because the defensive lineman from Tulane is going to be a welcome addition to the Oklahoma Sooners defensive front. And ironically, the Oklahoma Sooners have gotten up close and personal look of Jeffery Johnson. So for anybody out there saying, oh, well, he's just from Tulane, this is just an okay get, he was incredibly disruptive against the Oklahoma Sooners. So, Sooner fans will remember this young man from the first game in which he was disruptive through and through. That's the type of production you want out the interior. And that's where it's going to be so interesting to see what happens moving forward with Oklahoma's defensive front. Because I am just really, really interested in how Todd Bates is going to utilize the talent currently on roster and what the schematic variances will look like for Oklahoma with the talent they have. Jeffery Johnson isn't the only defensive lineman coming in, though. Oklahoma just got another defensive lineman via the portal from Hawaii, Laulu, and pairing these two together with the experience, with the tenacity, and with the upside they both have, I think is going to be a massive victory, plus the individuals currently on roster. So, with all of that being said, really interested in hearing from Oklahoma fans. You got some really good news before a big weekend. In both DaShaun White deciding to come back for another year, which is great for Sooner fans, great for Brent Venables getting that experience in the inside linebacker. And then Brent Venables continues to utilize the transfer portal in a positive fashion. Something that must be done if you are trying to not lose a step in a situation that he was thrust into. And he's done great for Oklahoma in that regard. And I think Mel Tucker doing so at Michigan State and having such positive results has really kind of laid a blueprint. A lot of coaches thought the blueprint was there, but actually seeing it happen to the level of success Mel Tucker had kind of took that thought and made people realize, like, okay, this is a very real thing. And now we see Brent Venables utilizing it in such a positive way, getting so many players before, but now adding in Jeffery Johnson, the talented defensive lineman from Tulane. Very interested in hearing from y'all. Hop down below. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.